What's the worst thing a house guest has done in your home? He let my new very old, very deaf foster dog out of the gate on purpose and the dog took off up the street. He just stood there smirking while I grabbed my shoes and keys, and after I shouted at him for being a moron. He told me that it was for the best and maybe I should focus my time on other things. I eventually caught up to the terrified and exhausted dog and brought her back home. Told guest to pack his bags and go. Friends of a relative stayed the night at our place with their kids while we were out of town. We asked if the children wet the bed so we could put plastic sheets down. They were confident the kids wouldn't wet the bed, so we let it be. We come home to find 2 of the beds, new mattresses, soaked in piss, not even stripped or changed. The kids had wet the bed in the night. Moved to another bed and wet again. 3 weeks later we found used diapers under one of the beds. Never said thank you. Never said sorry. I had a friend who had some kind of ducked up urethra. It made him have multiple streams when he pissed. But he ducking refused to sit down and pee. Because that's for women. He apparently also refused to clean up after himself. Every time he left my house, without fail, I'd have to use a mop to clean up his piss. I called him out on it. And he laughed like I should be laughing with him. We weren't friends long. Lived with me for free. Ducked my girlfriend who is the mother of my 2 kids, then ran off with her. Best thing that could have ever happened. Now I'm with an amazing, wonderful, and beautiful women. Get the kids a lot and the ex is miserable. Karma-ic. We were housing a few homeless kids, 14, 16, and 17, for a while. Their mom was a meth addict and stopped coming around to see them after a while. Well anyways, the youngest, female, would frequently just leave used tampons on the floor. I was 14 at the time and couldn't invite friends over anymore because a 16-year-old male would hit on all my friends and try to touch and would try to cuddle with them while they were sleeping. The youngest left after a couple months because she didn't like our house rules and missed her mom. The oldest left after we found out she was lying about attending online schooling and was frequently shoplifting and stealing people's things around the house. The 16-year-old boy ended up staying the longest, 1 year, and ended getting kicked out because we got in an argument and he ended up trying to choke me. Good times. Years ago I had a big party, which was a weekly occurrence, and these like 3 roided up goofs went into the tiny bathroom to do some lines. Well, they got all hyped up and ripped our sink off the wall. We tried to lock a roided up dude on coke in the bathroom to normalize a party. It got real wild when he came through the goddamn wall like the Kool-Aid man. My brother's girlfriend took a 2-hour shower with the shower curtain outside of the tub and flooded our upstairs bathroom. The water eventually started pouring out from the light fixtures in our kitchen. Stole my little sister's Nintendo DS. He was a great friend up until then. Would eat dinner with our family every other day too. Real painful backstab for middle school me. I feel you and your sister. I had a friend in middle school who moved away with my Nintendo SP. I loved that thing so much because I had saved up all year for it. But the day I went to buy it I actually won one at an arcade machine with $2. We thought it might be filled with candy, but nope, it was real. It's been like 13 years and I'm still bitter about it. Ducking Adrian. You asshole. My uncle and his 2 sons moved in with my family. Youngest son, chill kid. Works. And pays rent to my mom. Nothing wrong with him. Uncle. Takes older son's disability money to pay for his and the eldest's rent instead of his own money. Treats my mom like shit. My dad, his brother, lets him because he is also a piece of shit. Oldest son, mental health issues. Starts stealing items from around the house to pay for his drug addiction, including 2 high-end keyboards. Attempts to sneak into sister's room while she sleeps. Breaks into neighbor's house. Caught on the 2nd try. Sets fire to our backyard and finally gets picked up by cops and is sent with his mother so he can finally be properly medicated and taken care of. It's been a hell of a year, folks. I once had a guest shave his entire beard at a party. It was the first time me or my roommate met him. He had a beard. And then went and used my roommate's razor to shave it off. I opened the bathroom door not knowing my best friend was in there taking a huge whiff of my wife's large thong. I had a rager of a party a few years back and some dude decided to make a soup in my bathtub. He was very inclusive in his approach and allowed anyone to add their own ingredients. But he was the chef and protected it all night. I didn't find out until the early morning because I was busy being off my tits and all that. Included in the soup was vomit, blood, a couple condoms, not used, a sheet ton of water, spirits and beer, some noodles, pasta, cereal, milk and a fish someone had taken from my neighbor's pond which subsequently died. There was a ton of other stuff too. But that is what I remember. I had a really spoiled princess type friend who always expected me to cater to her when she would come visit. I didn't really want her to visit. But she just announced she was coming and I dealt with it. One morning she texted me to wake me up, saying can you please get up and make me breakfast? I wish I could say that was the last straw. But it wasn't until she pitched a fit that I didn't make her a bridesmaid and boycotted my wedding that I finally called it quits. Not me, but this happened to my bestie in high school. She's a crafty and eclectic person, so back then she'd buy stuffed animals from Goodwill and sew them together Frankenstein style. She threw a rager at her house one night and the next day someone had jacked off onto one of them. Come all over its poor koala monkey face and everything. Had a party when I was about 15. More jelly and ice cream than shots and going wild as we were fairly sheltered. Somebody brought along their friend, who looked a similar age to us, quite short, but he was actually 23 at the time. He brought along a bottle of vodka and proceeded to drink 3/4 of it within a couple of hours. We're talking 7 PM here. Nobody else at the party was drinking at all. Just chilling and playing MTG. He proceeded to ignore the two different bathrooms and went into the kitchen, where my parents were trying to avoid cramping my style, and vomited into the kitchen sink all over the plates. And then left without saying anything or helping to clear up. The following day, he went on Facebook and made a number of very cruel personal comments about me. And then when I rang him in tears to tell him to take it down and that he should apologize for the mess he'd made of the kitchen, which I'd had to clean up, he recorded the conversation, uploaded it to YouTube and then made great efforts to distribute it on Reddit and across Facebook. No idea why his embarrassment at being a drunkard has evolved into being a bully. But it's been 10 years and I still avoid him if I bump into him in the street. Psycho creep. When I was young, a kid from down the street was round my house. We were messing about in my room. He saw my Digimon cards and started going through them. We then went outside to play. While kicking a ball about on my drive, a load of Digimon cards fell out of his pocket. I went over to look at them. Of course they were mine. I looked at him. His face was red. Obviously embarrassed. I calmly picked up all the cards, without a word, and took them inside my house. Went back out to play, like nothing ever happened. Thinking back on it now, WHO the duck steals Digimon cards. They weren't even popular. When no one was looking, he went through the liquor cabinet, found an unopened bottle of caramel vodka, and downed the whole lot. He then placed the bottle back in the cupboard as though nothing had happened before proceeding to the bathroom, where he vomited on everything except in the toilet. Didn't clean any of it up. But before leaving did use Miso's toothbrush. Had a party and my roommate's friend took a sheet on the floor in the middle of the night. He had the decency to clean it up. But still. Family friend's house sat while we were on holidays when I was a teenager. They had 6 in my waterbed. Yes, it was the 90s. I loved it. How do I know? There were cum stins on my sheets. At 14. I once had a party at my mum's flat while she was gone, with her permission. One of my less close friends begged me to let her invite her boyfriend and I agreed. Well, the boyfriend puked on my mum's balcony and never told anyone. It was also January, so we discovered the puke 2 months later when it started to melt. I asked around and was told it was him by 2 people who saw him puke. I have no idea why they didn't let me know then. We hosted a married couple at our house for a weekend. Both days they were there. In the middle of the afternoon, they would take a shower together for like an hour. You could hear the noises. It was so awkward and they did it both times while we were home. I'm fine with sexy time. Just maybe be a little more discreet. Brother made copies of my house keys. Came into my house when I was visiting our dad in the nursing home. Dug through our unborn daughter's crib to find my safe. Broke into the safe. Stole all of my dad's Oxycontin. Then proceeded to blame my 8-month pregnant wife, saying that she took 70-80 milligrams Oxycontins without me noticing. Somewhere along the way, someone threw away one of my forks. Now I have 7 forks and 8 of everything else. I want to find out who this person is and make him her sit in a room segregating M&Ms for me for the rest of her life. I was throwing a birthday party for my daughter at our house and we have a septic system. Well, rule number 1 of a septic is you don't flush anything other than toilet paper. Ever. Well, during the party I guess a bunch of people started flushing baby wipes down the toilet. Long story short, our septic started backing up in the middle of the party and after that it all turned to sheet. Invited my new girlfriend in my house and she immediately started rummaging through my stuff. I asked, might I ask what you're doing? She replies with, you've got nothing to hide, right? I laughed and asked her to leave. Good thing she didn't find the body. My wife's cousin plopped her big, crusty feet on our coffee table and sprayed them down with an antifungal spray. And then when we're having our very small wedding reception at our house she sat there and asked very loudly if ours was a shotgun wedding because she thought she noticed a bump on my wife, who was just a little curvy while the cousin is morbidly obese. And then a few years later she was sitting on our couch farting up a storm when she suddenly had to get up and rush to the bathroom. I just happened to look up and to my horror saw a black streak running down her ass. We had to get new couch cushions. 2 of them came at the same time. Spent the whole time either screaming or sleeping. Yet they kept us up most of the night. To make it worse, they haven't left for going on 6 years now. I'd also like to add that we paid $1,500 a month for 5 years just to get them out of the house so we could go to work. I shudder every time I think about that. My father-in-law refuses to close the shower curtain and floods our bathroom every day. Every visit. We even bought and installed a curved shower rod to give him more room, although the tub is not small nor is he overly large. Lost my cooler booted and now my mother-in-law camps by the door to clean up the mess immediately after he showers so she can pretend he closes it now. WTF. Friend was high on Xanax and was bored. I was like, yeah, well maybe you should do that ducking macro project like I'm doing. He keeps begging to come over. I'm like, dude, I'm ducking working on a project. He still comes over while I'm in the bathroom and my brother lets him in. Now we're screwed because not only is he high on Xanax but he's also the type of guy that doesn't know when to leave even when he's sober. He starts ducking with my dog, she pisses all over the couch, then he does it again and she pisses on the other couch. My parents are ducking neat freaks and they were on vacation at this time, which actually ended up making it worse because now my friend basically thought, yeah, no parents, let's party. I ended up giving him something to drink, he spills that on the floor so had to clean that up, then he ducking falls asleep in the middle of my family room just on the ground. I was like, dude, you gotta ducking leave, I'm trying to finish this project and I can't keep babysitting you. Finally he gets a text from some kid wanting to get high so my buddy leaves to smoke. I get a text at like 2 AM from my friend begging everybody if he can spend the night. He was apparently super high and drunk. That was an easy duck no for me. I told him to sleep in his car. Now he's currently in rehab for heroin, so he never really got his sheet together and I ended up basically doing his macro project for him so he wouldn't fail. Turns out it didn't matter because he failed all his other classes that semester. Old friend from HS was going to be temporarily homeless and asked to crash on my couch for a couple weeks. Hadn't seen him in years, so I figured that was cool. He didn't tell me he had become a non-racist skinhead. which meant he still hated gays and any other minorities unrelated to race. He had become a huge, violent pile of shit. One night he invited his skinhead GF over and they regaled me with stories of them and their boys ganging up and beating the snot out of anybody who disrespected them. All the while laughing as if it were no big deal. I let him stay for a month out of concern that if I kicked him out, I'd be met with a surprise boot party. He finally moved in his GF and I never contacted him again. Duck him. A friend of mine broke my ping pong table by ferociously banging his girlfriend on it. I was able to fix the legs only to discover that one section of my table smelled like us and had a stubborn cum stain crusted onto it. So, $10 ping pong table for sale on Craigslist and I decided to put up a dartboard in that spot instead. Back in college I lived in a 6-man apartment style dorm that had shared living spaces and 3 bathrooms. Some of my roomies had guests over one weekend when I was out of town and when I got back on Sunday night, I noticed that my razor had hair stubble in it. I didn't think much about it, but it was one of those expensive refill razors. And later on one of the guests asked me if it was okay if they had used my razor. I was kinda miffed about what this lazy asshole had done. So I told him I was okay with it, but that he should probably get checked for hepatitis B. Since I was infected since age 12, I wasn't, when I had a bad blood transfusion in Vietnam when my family was on vacation. The entire group hearing this dropped silent and the offending asshole turned white. I told him, sorry man. I didn't expect you to use my razor. Otherwise, I would have given you a new blade or disinfected it for you. You better get a blood test. The guy asked me if I was serious. And I said as serious as a heart attack and 2 kidney failures. A few hours later, my roomie asked if it was true and I said yes. I am guessing his friend must have shit his pants. I let the lie go for about a week and then I fessed up. Evil duck that I am. Well, wasn't exactly a house guest, but my German exchange student. I was late for school. Since she didn't want to get up, ignored me. Then just as we were leaving and I'd given her lunch money, she sat down and insisted on a full breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, the works. I was an hour late. I have a crook brother but the rest of us are normal, by comparison. Anyway, he meets a crook woman as usual and goes against mum and dad's direction and brings her home. Thing is, he also invited her whole family who were crooks. So impromptu family lunch with complete scum strangers. As though one dirtbag of my brother wasn't enough, they were planning for the happy couple's future even though this was week 1. Even tried to set up another of my brothers with one of their sisters. All the while laughing that she stabbed her last boyfriend. Another time the brother brought home a street 6 worker junkie with no teeth uninvited. She proceeded to rub peaches all over her face because they remind her of her taken children. Shortly after I enter the room and start eating them to the horror of my family. That fairy tale ended when they ran interstate together and he found her in bed with a pregnant teenager who he returned to the state now dating. Childhood is fun. Brought their laptop over that was seeding a bunch of torrents and got me a couple of cease and desist letters from my ISP. Best part is they listed the titles of the torrents and now it looks like I'm really into interracial porn. The first time one of my friends visited my place, he immediately came in, opened my fridge, grabbed a bear and some random food. Throw away because of reasons. My 4 roommates and I threw regular big parties in college, approx 100-150 people. I woke up the morning after one and found someone had broken into my room and taken a vintage wooden and brass marijuana pipe and its leather satchel from my room. My father had given that to my mother maybe 25 years earlier. My father died when I was 5 years old. I hope the person who did that ended up losing an eye or getting their big dig ripped off. My cousins visited and got bored. Walked into my sister's bedroom and noticed a small dent in the wall. They then picked up a bicycle pedal and some of the harder toys lying around and started chipping away at the wall. I, 5 at the time, thought this was hilarious and told my parents in the living room, entertaining all our guests for the evening. They just laughed and said they'd come look in a bit, not taking me seriously, probably because I was laughing so much telling his story. When they did decide to check, they could see a hand poking through the hole and reaching into the dining room before they even walked into the bedroom. They were 9 and now my mother says she's had the worst house guests in the world. It was a brick wall, by the way.